Okay, so we're up to over here. The Rebbe was explaining that the for different uh, things, the king is the melech is mevazvez the, and so he brought down from the Maimon brings down from the Medrash Tilim, and he brings down from the Medrash Rabbah, and he brings down all the different aspects on the imois b'mincha netzach, the ultimate pleasantness to give who is b'mincha, the right hand of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. That's the netzach. So the Rebbe was in the middle of explaining that yes, from the achasane b'yem chasanose zumat Torah. At that point, we have also a gilui from the level of the oitzrus. That's the level of when the pasuk says "Toideinu rechayim tzofa l'Torah," and over there we have oitzrus, like a person makes a wedding, he reveals the oitzrus, and then you have the soivas mochus, the seven categories of tzaddikim. So the Rebbe said that the seven categories of tzaddikim represents changing the world, because the world is seven. So the Rebbe brought in from the Rishimus of the Tzedek, in which he also brings down this soivas mochus, the drasha that it means the seven groups of tzaddikim, and then he ties it into the seven strands that was in the harp in the Beis Hamikdash, the seven tzaddikim with the seven strands that was in the heart of the harp of the Beis Hamikdash. So the Rebbe explained why does the tzemach bring us down is because the intent of the world is for Yidden to make it into a Beis Hamikdash. And that's the Osuli Migdash, to make the world turn around. And the seven strands in the Beis Hamikdash are sort of the wholesomeness of the world. That's the Beis Hamikdash and the seven strands. But this is just to bring out how the seven strands. So the Rebbe will continue over here. Bezehu sheho inyan the Zayin kita shel tzadikim bo behemshech. And this is the idea that by the way that Tzemach Tzedek brings it down, that he talks about the seven groups of the tzaddikim, and it comes behemshech le'inyan the Zayin hanimim shalakiner the Beis Hamikdash. It comes after the idea, bring the subject, the seven strands of the Beis Hamikdash harp. Ki havoida the da Zayin kites tzaddikim. Because what is the service of the seven groups of the tzaddikim? Ilasis es olam lemigdash lo yisborach, is to make the world for a migdash. Basically, so we see in the Tzemach Tzedek as well that the seven, the Rebbe has evidence from the Tzemach Tzedek, the way he brings down the connection, that when we talk about the Zayin Kittes of tzaddikim, that's basically talking about making the world into a place for Hashem. A migdash lo yizborich. So this is the second of these three aspects. The first aspect is the chasana, which is Matan Torah. Then there is a revelation of the Eitzres. The second aspect is changing the world around, the Olam, the Zayin, Kittes of Tzaddikim. And the Rebbe brings in from the Tzemach Tzedek also that the Zayin Kittes of Tzaddikim, they change the world. And that level that Rebbe brings down, the Inyan Zeh, Sha'olam Nasa L'Migdash V'Dir Lo Yizbarach. So this second aspect in which the world becomes a Migdash and a Dira for Hashem, so that is similar to the war to widen the territory of his boundaries, to make his territory bigger. That is also something that you spend from the treasures, but not in the way of splurging. So the second level is to make the world into a place for a migdosh, a place or dwelling place. That's the second step, in which we have the oitzres, but not bizbus oitzres. Then we have the third and the final step, which is ne'imois bi mincha netzach. That where is the pleasantness? What is on the right hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? That's the level of netzach. Hu inyan hanitzochen de Yisrael. That is the idea of the victory of the Yidden shemenatzchin es hamenagid. That they win, they are victorious, and they beat the opponent. So sha'avoida zu, this avoida, hi achaviva v'hani'ima. That's the dearest, that's the most pleasant, ni'imus, shall call Zion ha'avodas, of all the seven avodas. She'bishvil zeh neisnim es kol ha'oitzres. For that, you give all the treasures, u'ba'ofen the bizbuz, in a way of splurging, l'maylo mecheshben, without, beyond, above of any accounting, just spread it out. So this is the explanation that follows, that the Rebbe explains before, that there is an idea of Nisava Kodesh Baruch Hu, Liis Leidire B'Tachtonim. Yes, but the real bizbuz is for Nitzochen, is to be victorious, just Netzach in itself. And this is the way the Rebbe ties it into the Medrashim that the Friedrich Rebbe brings down. The Medrash that says Todeine Rechayim, which is level of Torah, and then the level of Sevas Smoches, which is the Dira B'Tachtonim, conquering the world, and the image B'Mincha Netzach, meaning the victory, to these three levels of how much the Oitzres are spread out. First we have Torah, the Chasana, some of the Oitzres, then we have making the world into a Dira B'Tachtonim, which is more Oitzres, but the way of Bizbuz you get through the level of Netzach. Yud Gimel. Ois Yud Gimel. Umamshich b'hamaimer, so the Maimer continues, the Isa b'Medrash, that it says in the Medrash, the Ne'imos b'Yimincha Netzach, what is the pleasantness that in your right hand is the Netzach, Zeha Lulav. That is the Lulav Shenikach b'Yimin, that you take it in your right hand. Mincha, the right hand, you take the Lulav, you take in the right hand. The Esreg you hold in the left hand. The Lulav you hold in the right hand. So Nimas b'Mincha, Netzach is the Lulav. Because the Lulav is Yimincha. Why is the Lulav considered Netzach? Why is it considered Nitzochen? Why is it victory? Shal Yidei Zeh HaNitzochen Hu Begilui. Because the Lulav represents, through the Lulav, the Nitzochen is Begilui. This comes after the Avodah of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, in which there's a battle. There's a battle against the other side. The Yidden are Zoiche Bedin, they're Zoiche in judgment. How do we know that they're Zoiche b'judgment? How is it publicized? So you take the Lulav. The Lulav, the Medrash says, is a declaration, Anon Nitzuchai, that we won. Then the Nitzochen, the victory, is opened. Like we find in the Medrash. For example, two people that went into the judge. We don't know who is the one that is winning, who is the victor. Ella Man the nosiv bayon, the one who holds the bayon, which is the lulav vahodos, the one who holds the lulav and the hodos, biyode in their hand. Anan yadin dehu nitzuchaya, we know that he won. He holds the lulav, that's the show of the victory. Kach Yisrael, the same thing, this is a moshul for the Yidden Chulu, that we go into judgment, and Rishonim, Kippur, Seresim, Tshuva, we don't know if they actually won the judgment for Ksivach Simateva, Shana Teva Mesuka for a good year, but through the lulav, when they go sukkahs, they come to the lulav, Onun Yoidim the Yisrael Inun Nitzuchaya, that the Yidden are the one that were victorious. Why does the Friedrich Rebbe, the Rebbe explains now, bring in this mashal about the medrash that we don't know who is victory, and then the Yidden are the one that end up being the victors? Why is that important to explain the idea of Netzach? The Rebbe explains that in this medrash, because we're saying that we're not sure who won, that represents that you have a big opponent. In other words, the Nitzochen is not easy. It doesn't come just a Nitzochen. Because when you say, Les Anan Yoidim, we don't know who is going to win, that means that there's a strong opposition. We don't know who wins. And we're trying to say that even in that case, we have the Nitzochen. V'yesh so we can say, this that the Friedrich Rebbe in the Maimer brings down from the Medrash. We don't know who wins. Why does he bring this down? Hu kimikivon shekol inyan hanitzochen hu lenatseach es hamenagid. Since the entire matter of victory is just to win the opponent, it's not so much what the win gives you, but it's just the winning. The nitzochen is just to be strong of the menagid. So it's important to know that we don't have just a nitzochen. We're having a nitzochen, even a very big and strong menagid. Harikol masha menagid hu b'tokev yoser. The more that the opponent is with more force, hanitzochen hu b'yoser, then the victory is even more. The greater the enemy, the greater the force against, the greater is the victory. And we're talking about, it's all about victory. It's all about winning over the opponent. And that's why he brings in the Maimer. Leis anon yodin chulu. We don't know. Hainu sha'amenaged u'betoikev kol kach. The opponent is so forceful, at sheyochel li sofik, so that there is a doubt. There can be a doubt. Shehu yiyam menasech, that he should, God forbid, be the one that is winning. He says, "V'leis anon yodin." We don't know. In other words, he's such a strong opponent that he might win. And when you win the opponent, when he's a forceful, when he's strong, then is the true and the main idea of Nitzochen. Victory is even against a very strong opponent. And the Rebbe explains now another aspect in the language of the Maimer over there. In the beginning of the Maimer, the Alter Rebbe talks about both Iskafia and Ishapcha. And the Rebbe will explain over there, the point that the Rebbe is trying to bring in the beginning of the Maimer is how through our Avodah, when a person turns himself around, and Iskafia and Ishapcha, he turns the world around. He makes the place for Dira Lo Yisbarach B'Tachtonim. He makes it a dwelling place. That's the point over here. But at the end of the Maimer over here, he's talking about Netzochen. We're not talking so much about his hapcha, about making the world laharchiv esagvul, to making more place for Hakadosh Baruch Hu. We're talking just about the Netzoch, about winning the being victorious. That's mainly by his kafir. That's why in the end of the Maimer, we see that the Rebbe emphasizes, talks about his kafir and doesn't bring down his hapcha at the end of the Maimer. The Rebbe said, based on this, we understand. The Rebbe is explained that it's all about the tzochin. That's why he brings down from the Medrash that we don't know who's going to win, to point out that there's such a strong opponent. So based on this idea that this is all about nitzochin, about victory, Yuvan gam hashekosuf b'siyum v'chosim haperek. We can also understand what he writes in the end and the completion, the seal of this chapter. The inyan hanitzochin huliyas is kafir sitra achra. That the idea of the victory is to subdue the sitra achra. So he uses iskafia dafka. Now he uses to subdue. Afshe betchilas hemshech omer kama v'kama pamim. Even though in the beginning of the hemshech of Basi Legani, he says many times iskafia v'ishapcha, to subdue and to turn around. How come he just says iskafia? The Rebbe explains, in the idea of making a sanctuary, in which he talks about in the beginning of the Hemshech, of making a place for Hashem, a Migdosh, Nase be'ikir al yidei ha'avodah dis hapcha. Over there, it is accomplished, it's made up mainly through his hapcha, through turning around. Through a person turning around his animal soul to kedusha, nasekein gam ba'olam. That also accomplishes this in the world, to turn around the nefesh, to turn around the world and make it into kedusha. That the world turns into a migdosh and a dwelling place for Hashem. So the person needs to turn himself around, and then it's his hapcha, you turn the world around, and the world becomes a sanctuary, a dwelling place for Hashem. Over here in the end of the Maimer, he's talking about the subject of Netzach. The greater the opponent is with more force, then the victory is greater. Kinal, as we said earlier, it's mainly through the avodah of subduing the sitra achra, while she is still in its force and its strength, to win the Yetzer Hara, not to, when it's already been neutralized, you weakened it. No, it's still in force, and still you're beating it. B'tokfa b'guroso. B'zeu gam masha mesayim ba'perek, and this also ends in the perek. Ubishvil zehu his galus oitzer elyon. Quote, that for this nitzochen is the revelation of the supreme oitzer, of that oitzer. Because as the Rebbe explained, that she'iker his galus ha'oitzer, the main revelation of the oitzer, ube'oifen de bizbus, and in a way of splurging, ubishvil ha'avoida de iskafia dafke, is specifically for the avoida v'iskafia. That's why the Eibishter gives bizbus de oitzeres. Not so much for his hapcha, that's for his kafia. That's what the Alter Rebbe, that's what the Rebbe brings down. Friedke Rebbe in the Maimer, that is bishvil zeh. These galus are the bizbus oitzres, as the Rebbe said before. Yes, there is also oitzres, the sheva soiva smoches, the sheva kitos, but bimincha ni'ima is bimincha netzach. The sweetness, the pleasantness. Where do we give all the Eitzres in a way of Bizbuz, that's for the Milchama, that's for Nitzochen, that's for Iskafir. The Rebbe said, "V'yesh lekasher zeim amavur ba'maimer." We can tie this also to what explained in the Maimer. The Hagam shemesiras ha'oitzer hu al yidei sorim u'pkidim davke. The Maimer says that who gives over the treasures, that's the officers, the appointed people. They are the ones that present it. But who is it for? Hakavone pnimis heim ha'anshe chayil. Who is the inner intent? Who is meant to get these oitzres? Not the sorim u'pekidim, but that's the people, the soldiers, the anshe chayil, the men who are in uniform, those who are fighting the war. Those are the intended recipient of these oitzres, the bizbus oitzres for them. So the Rebbe explains now that we're saying that it's mainly iskafia, so the sorim upekidim represent people that are already on a shtickle madrega. They're a sar, a pokid. That means that he's a madrega already. That means, but the main intent of the oitzres is for the poshta soldier, who is not yet on a madrega. He's not a sar, he's not a pokid. He's fighting the battle. We're trying to say here, the oitzes were given for the pashta person, for the soldier, the one who is out there waging the war, and he is not yet shaykh to turn things around, because his yetzer hara and his force in him is mamish an opponent, and he has to wage war. And that's the purpose of the bizbus ha'oitzres, to give him the ability to win the war. Ki ha'hefresh bein iskafia li'ishapchahu. So, what's the difference between iskafia and ishapcha is k'moshe mevayir Admur Maharash. The Rebbe Maharash explains, ishapcha, when you turn things around, means you don't have to battle anymore the evil. Hu shemoyes bera. He rejects, he hates. It's repugnant to him. He doesn't like Ra. So it doesn't have a war anymore. Ishapcha in the loisase means that he has no interest. He rejects right. And also the person who is ishapcha in his avodah, in the line of doing good, it says until him that he wants it a lot, meaning he has a very strong yearning. He hates Ra and he loves mitzvah. He wants mitzvahs. That's his hapcha. He wants mitzvahs with yearning, with the will. The inyan zed, that level of his hapcha, hurak b'tzadikim. That's tzadikim. A tzadik has conquered. It doesn't have a yetzer hara, hates Ra, and has a desire for good. That's sorim upekidim. That's officers and appointed people. That's already people of madrega. Masha'enke niskafyahu. What is iskafyahu? Iskafyahu is fakert. He has a struggle. He loves Taibas. He loves Ra. She'ene moyes bera. He doesn't reject Ra. V'gam b'negele v'asei toiv. And also as it's connected to do good, he doesn't have a yearning, a want in mitzvahs. And yet, he forces himself to stay away from evil and do good. In a way of victory. It's a fight. That's the nitzach. Inyan zeh, and that level, that's anybody. That's all, anybody in the army, every Jewish person, l'chol echad mi Yisrael. That you don't have to be a Sarah pocket, anshe chayil, to stand strong, to not give in, and to overcome in a way of victory. That's for the anshe chayil. K'de'isa betanya, as we find in the Tanya, The iskafia sitra achra, ba'oida betokvo begvroso, to subdue the other side while the other side is in full force and strength. Betokva, force, begvroso, and strength. Himidas habenunim. That's the measure of the ordinary, the middle way, the midas habenuni, the measure of the benuni. He midas kol odom is the measure of every person. We should all strive to that. So it says v'yesh loymar, and we can say that this is zeu gamkin hakesher, the Netzach Yisrael im lulav uminov. The Netzach, the victory of Yisrael with the lulav and the minov. We said before, Neimers b'mincha Netzach from the Medrash, that when the Yidden carry the lulav in the right hand, that's the Netzach Yisrael. But now that we're saying, so we know that the lulav together, we have the four species, and we also have the arove, which Netzach and Hoid represent the willows, which have no taste and no smell, meaning they're the lowest level. We're trying to say that they too become together with the lulav, that the lulav encompasses, and the victory is for everybody, that also the Aravis join the lulav. The haminim shebelulav moirim al asugim de Yisrael. The different species that go with the lulav, they point to the various categories of the Jewish people. The gam sugachi atachten, and also the lowest, the very lowest category, Shabi Yisrael. Shenimshal la'arove, which has been equated to Rove, she'ein bo loy tam b'leireach, has no tam and no reach. Yesh bo koyach hanitzochet. There is there also that power of nitzochet, of netzach. Ba'adrabe, and on the contrary, not only does it also have Tafke ba'arove, it is still specific by the Rove, koyach hanitzochin hu b'yoser. The Rove, by the Chayil, the power of Nitzochen is more by the Arava, by the simple. Kiyudua shenetzach v'hoid hem bade Aravis. It's known that Netzach and Hoid are the two sticks of the Aravis. So while you have the other midas representing the other species, but Netzach and Hoid are the willows, Sheim Bem Loy Tam V'Loy Reach, and they have the power of Nitzochen. Bal Yidei Sheha'arovis Ma'oiririm Es Koyach HaNitzochen. And through the fact that the Arovis, those who have the biggest struggles, they arouse and wake up in themselves that power of victory, to overpower, to win the Yetzer while he's still in force and strength. They tied together with the Hadassim and the Lulav. We do all the species together. And through the Lulav and the Hadassim, which are the higher level, they're like the Sorim and the Pekidim. And through them, by being together, it's extended to them. Also similar to the idea of Ishapchas. And then they know, the Yidden know that they won because Shanitzochen who begilu le'ein koil, that victory becomes open, and that's when the lulav, when ein on yodim, that's what we know, that through the aravis. The aravis we don't know, but when you connect them together with the adasim and the lulav, and the lulav is the declaration, so we know that the Yidden are the victories, they also get a level of ishapcha, and that becomes open to everyone. So that's the Rebbe explaining over here in Oishit Gimel, that the Main thing is the netzochen, and to win the menagid when it's betoikev, and that's why the splurges, and that's why it's specifically the uh, people that have the struggles when you have iskafia, not so much ishapcha, but you have the iskafia, and that's not the sorim, that's the pasha to soldier, and that soldier needs to have that level nitzochen, and then he turns it around, and it becomes opening to everyone that they won the war. Okay, we shall continue, Mr.